Register now for the 2023 Agri-Pulse Food and Ag Issue Summit in California. The event will offer participants a full day of presentations and panel discussions. You can hear from members of the California Legislature, food and agriculture leaders, along with industry experts and academics. The summit takes place on June 5th at the Sheraton Grand Sacramento and through our virtual experience. View the latest information and register today under the Events tab at agripulse.com.
Welcome back to another episode of Meet the Lawmaker. We are joined this week by Representative Nikki Budzinski, who represents Illinois' District 13. Congresswoman, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
So to kick off this interview, just tell us a little bit more about your district and what kinds of agriculture are in it.
We have a lot of agriculture. The 13th Congressional District actually kind of crisscrosses the central part of the state. The most eastern part is Champaign-Urbana, home of the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign, where we obviously have a lot of really great agricultural programs. Our College of Aces is one of the world-class agricultural programs in the country. And then you cut through Monticello to Decatur, Decatur obviously being one of the headquarters of Archer Daniels Midland. A lot of obviously really important agricultural issues and topics that they obviously work on. And then it goes through Springfield. I live in Springfield, our state capital. It has most of Macoupin County, and then it drops down to East St. Louis. So almost all of the two counties on the other side of St. Louis are in this district. So it's a pretty big one. It's about 3 hours from the furthest east to west.
All right. And you were recently added on to the House Agriculture Committee. What are you hoping to accomplish by sitting on that committee?
Well, first of all, I'm incredibly excited to be on the committee because it's a farm bill year. And as you know, the farm bill only comes up once every 5 years. So to be able to be a part of helping to negotiate this really big bill that's going to help our family farmers, help a lot of the different agricultural interests that really are throughout this district, whether it is agricultural education. I'm also doing some work. As you know, our two biggest commodities are corn and soybean. So really trying to lean in and be supportive of biofuels. So there's a lot of different things within the Farm Bill, and of course the nutrition program, which is something that's also really important to our constituents, or my constituents throughout the 13th, that I'll be able to be a really good advocate for as a member of the House Agriculture Committee.
Let's dive a little bit more into that. There's many challenges that face the agriculture industry. From your perspective, what challenges do you see that you are hoping to kind of tackle within the Farm Bill?
Well, I would say even throughout the campaign when I was running, I heard a lot about high input prices and costs and our commodity prices keeping up with input costs. And so I think we need to figure out ways to help save money for the family farmer. I think we need to provide some securities. That's why I'm very supportive of crop insurance, something that I think is really important to supporting family farmers who are dealing with a lot of unpredictability, whether it be mostly from the market, but also from changing climate. The most western part of my district now has flooding that's at historically high levels, almost on an annual basis now. So things like crop insurance are going to help family farmers provide a little bit more security. That's something I want to be an advocate for. But I think we need to find ways to create more innovation and opportunity. I mentioned biofuels. Biofuels for me are a win in 3 different ways. One, I think it can help reduce the cost of gas at the pump for consumers. I think 2, it reduces our carbon footprint. But 3, and just as importantly, it's supporting our family farmers in corn and soybean, which are obviously very much needed to produce the biofuels. So how are we making those kind of critical investments, and how the Farm Bill can be a vehicle for that? I also am really excited. One of the 3 subcommittees I'm going to serve on is the research subcommittee, which I think is really important. Decatur to Champaign is really the ag tech corridor of the entire country. All of the innovation that ADM is doing in Decatur, the precision farming research that's happening at the University of Illinois, the research park that they have, where a lot of agribusiness will have different, representation within that. They're doing a lot of really interesting, innovative work to create more innovative ideas in agriculture. I think those are places where we can really help support our family farmers and look to helping to train the future farmers that are going to be farming in the land of central and southern Illinois in the future.
So before coming to Capitol Hill, you were the chief of staff to the director at the Office of Management and Budget.
Yes.
So from that experience, what would you say was the biggest lesson you learned about how the federal government works or doesn't work while working there?
Yeah. Well, one of the things I had a unique perspective on, I'd say two things. One, we were implementing the American Rescue Plan when I had first come in and was the chief of staff at OMB. And that provided a lot of really critical funding to cities and municipalities. When I was traveling throughout the district as just a candidate, I'd meet with mayors and find out the type of federal relief that was being provided to communities, obviously as we were all coming out of COVID. Some of those were like broadband investment. Broadband is critically important for our agricultural economy. If we doubted the need to be connected in these last 3 years, I think that point was made for all of us that broadband connectivity is incredibly important. Those dollars went to support some communities within central and southern Illinois at the federal level to support that expansion. But then when I talked to the mayor of Granite City, for example, that community used it to help with flood mitigation efforts. As I mentioned, we're facing some historic flooding in the western part of this district. And so I think those are the types of things that I thought and I saw at the Office of Management and Budget that were providing real relief to working families in the communities throughout central Illinois that I thought was a positive. I think the other thing that is also really important and can touch on agriculture as well is the president signed an executive order establishing a Made in America office, which was something that I worked to help establish at the Office of Management and Budget, which really prioritizes American manufacturing again. One of the things I heard that really was impacting our family farmers were the bottlenecks around our supply chain. And some of that is directly attributed to an over-reliance, I believe, in a global economy. I think what COVID showed us is that we need to be bringing back more onshoring of those jobs, prioritizing American manufacturing so that the farm equipment and types of things of that nature that are going to help our family farmers do their work can be more readily available, and we can bring costs down if we're actually producing those things here in the United States.
Mm-hmm. So kind of piggybacking off of this a little bit, you know, a lot of these programs that you've mentioned, they all require funds to improve that investment. And from your experience at OMB, you know, how does that experience shape how you were going to approach the Farm Bill, given the debate around the debt ceiling and how we're going to funnel money into these programs?
Yeah, so I think the thing to look at this is in two different ways. In tackling the debt ceiling, we need to tackle and raise our debt ceiling. That is about paying our bills. That's about spending programs and legislation before I even got here that have been signed and passed into law. I often say when I'm at home as it relates to the debt ceiling, I'm expected to pay my bills. The government should pay their bills too. We don't want to default and send this economy into a free fall. So that's why I support us raising the debt ceiling. I think we should have a conversation though around spending, which is something that's separate, I think, from the debt ceiling debate. I think as we look at the Farm Bill, I think we need to look at where are the more critical investments that we need to be making. I very much believe that the nutrition program is something that is very important, that goes together with our support for our family farmers and directly supporting them. And so I think we need to be looking at all aspects of it. But the Farm Bill is so important as it supports our farmers, it supports agricultural education, it supports, as I mentioned, innovation. So we need to be looking at it in total, and I'm looking forward to that process. We just had our first hearing this week, so I'm sure there are many more to come.
And can you talk a little bit more about how you plan to work across the aisle to kind of bridge that gap and make this a bipartisan piece of legislation?
I would say that is one of the things and the reasons why I am so excited to be on the House Agriculture Committee. It's a place where there has been a history of bipartisan work. One of the first things I did when I was in new member orientation is I reached out to all of the members that surrounded the 13th Congressional District, regardless of party. So I sat down with Congresswoman Mary Miller. She is on the House Agriculture Committee. She, like I, represent an area of the state that is very similar. I have 7 counties in the 13th District. She shares 6 of those 7 counties. So while we come at the issues maybe a little differently, I do think that we both could agree in our meetings that the agriculture and the Farm Bill are places where maybe we could agree. And so so looking for those places of commonality. The second person I just mentioned is another new freshman, Zach Nunn, who represents Des Moines. He too now is on the House Agriculture Committee. He's a Republican, I'm a Democrat, but we had dinner a few weeks ago, just getting to know each other, and I think building a relationship that we can work together on the Farm Bill. Iowa and Illinois certainly have a lot of the same common interests as it relates to priorities, I believe, in the Farm Bill. Corn, soybean, pork being probably top 3 among them. So I know he and I are going to try to work together to find ways to support the communities that will be impacted by the Farm Bill.
Mm-hmm. And your campaign focused a lot on labor unions, and you have a big background in that. So can you talk a little bit more about how labor unions and farmers, like, what do they have in common, and why is it important to kind of bring that together?
Well, one thing I would mention is when I was running for office, prior to running for office, I worked for the United Food and Commercial Workers Union. So I often said as a candidate, I'm one of the few congressional candidates and now members that has been on a kill floor. I've been in a meat processing facility. So I know the dangerous work that working people do within our meat packing plants. And so the perspective of knowing that dangerous work, for a lot of those working people, the union contract often provided by the UFCW is one of the few things that they have that will help to guarantee they've got a good wage, good benefits, and safe working conditions. So I think in some of our food processing, I think that's something that I've seen firsthand and having worked for the UFCW. I think there's a connection to the Farm Bill. Obviously one of the things that came up in the House Agriculture Committee was line speed. That's something that is often looked at. And I know some of the discussion was around taking into account workplace safety and worker safety in that as a consideration. So I think that's kind of a more immediate, linkage between the Farm Bill, agriculture, and workers.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's all we have time for today, but Congresswoman, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.